Good morning, everybody. I'm Liz Cooke, and yes, I'm a strategic payment consultant for Barclaycard. So, Barclaycard, yes, we're a few brands around the room today, but if you don't know us, we are a payments company, and you probably know us more for card issuing, whether that's in the consumer or the commercial card space. But we are also a card acquirer and payment gateway provider. And to put that into some context, we process 1 in 3 of transactions in the UK today. So I'm actually here today to talk to you about creating the Optimum online payment customer journey. And that's a bit of a long title, right? So what does that mean? Does that mean that taking payments is very complicated? So no, I mean, it can mean an awful lot of things. If I were to stand up here today and say, I'll give you 3 tips to take away and your conversions will be upped by 100% next week and you'll double your customer base, then clearly I'll be lying. And quite frankly, if I could do that, then I'll be probably sat on a yacht in the Caribbean and not talking to you guys. But what I do have is 21 years working in the payment industry. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of payments. So hopefully some of the stuff that we go through today will give you some ideas about really refining your own payment journeys. So, where do we start? There's been more innovation in payments in the last 50 years, sorry, in the last 3 years than the previous 50. So as you can see on the left there, at the start, obviously you've got mainly Visa and MasterCard, and pretty much if you took Visa and MasterCard, you're sorted. You're going to be able to take payments. Then in 1997, we see the birth of eBay, which of course gave us PayPal, and we saw peer-to-peer payments for the first time and e-wallets. And then in 2003, chip and PIN arrived, and I vividly remember this because I had to go out and change customers' terminals in order for them to accept chip and PIN. And at the time, they were like, this is never going to work. It's a load of rubbish. It will never take off in this country. And of course, it has. And look where we are now. But really interestingly on that, I don't know if any of you trade in the States or holiday in the States for that matter. They're only just moving to chip and PIN today. And that's 15 years later. And I guess we tend to think that, sorry, Brittany Mike. We tend to think that the States are ahead of us, but certainly in payments, that's not the case, certainly with chip and PIN. And then in 2007, we get contactless. Are we okay? So 2007, then we moved to contactless. Can you hear me? All right, I'm going to have to stand still. And can you believe it's been 11 years since the birth of contactless? And then far on the right, we have an explosion of payment types. So from 2013 onwards, I guess that's where we've just seen so many different ways to pay. And the list up there is certainly not everything. And that innovation just keeps going and going. But as a retailer, do you need to switch on all of these payment types in order to aid your conversion? Well, I'd say no. I mean, if you were to switch on all of those straight away, then essentially you're boiling the ocean. There's so many different ways to pay now that are not going to be relevant potentially for your particular retail type. But a choice for you in the sectors that you want to be in and the countries that you want to trade in will certainly help your conversion. Okay, so the payment landscape is moving fast, and I think the previous slide just demonstrates that. That innovation for digital payments isn't slowing down anytime soon. As the devices that we live by on a day-to-day basis get more and more sophisticated, so will our payments. And then there's regulation. Oops, sorry. So has anyone out there heard of PSD2? Yep, okay. Good. So there's an awful lot behind PSD2, and if you haven't heard of it, it's basically regulation that's come from the EU Payment Services Directive, and that's landing in 2019. And I guess the biggest thing that we need to consider as far as payments is concerned is two-factor authentication. So what does that mean? Authentication is actually defined by three separate things. So that's something you have, something you are, and something you know. So to put that into context, something you have, well, that could be your phone. Something that you know, a PIN number or a passcode. Something you are, your name, inside leg measurement, something you actually are. And then there's PCI compliance. So, scary thing, or can be. We all want a fast and slick payments journey. And that's a great customer experience, but not at the detriment of your customers' payment details. It's down to you and your payment suppliers to help you to keep that detail safe. And finally, the rise of the connected shopper. So we're all connected 24/7, right? I guess we do sleep sometimes. IBM did some research recently and found that 71% of us now shop online basically to price match or to get a better price. So that's actually called showrooming, and I'm sure you've heard of it if you're a retailer today. So I suppose that's the negative side of connected shopping. And as a retailer, whether you're the online retailer or the bricks and mortar retailer, you're going to have to work that little bit harder to get that sale through. And whether that is either price matching or perhaps looking at loyalty, offering points and maybe sort of physical things to actually help that sale go through. So I guess that's the negative side of being connected all the time. Oops, sorry. But on the positive side, it just means that you have an audience. You have a way to get to your audience all of the time, because we're all connected, yeah? So I'll give you an example as to how connected we really are. Coffee shops tend to use this method. So we all know sort of beacon technology, and you'll get a notification on your phone and perhaps it'll be an offer for a free cup of coffee. Great marketing ploy. So if I'm out shopping, I'm with my millennial nephew, myself, and my 69-year-old mum. We've all got smartphones, we're all shopping together. So we walk past the coffee shop and the beacon technology finds us and ping, 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 we get 3 notifications. The millennial will instantly pick up that. So his phone is pinged, his headphones have pinged, everything else on him is pinged. And if he wants that coffee and wants to take up the offer for the half-price sandwich, then he's in that coffee shop before I've even found my phone, rummaging around at the bottom of my handbag. And then, even better, whilst he's drinking his coffee and eating his half-price sandwich, then he's Snapchatting his friends and he's WhatsApping his friends. So that really is a great example of the rise of the connected shopper. And you'd hope it'd all be like that. But no. There's me in the middle. Almost middle-aged. So I'll hear the notification, but will I act on it immediately? So the chances are probably not. I would say I'm 50-50. So the chances are I will see the notification, but it's more likely to be perhaps when I'm in my car and ready to go home and I'm just checking my messages before I've finished. So it still sort of worked. I didn't get my free cup of coffee on the day and I didn't buy my half-price sandwich, but in my head I'm thinking, okay, well that coffee shop has targeted me and offered me a free cup of coffee. Next time I'm in town, I'm going to use them. And then there's my 69-year-old mum, and she still hasn't seen the notification 3 weeks later. So, I mean, I'm not dissing my mum, bless her. She's just about mastered WhatsApp, so things are looking good. But the point is, we have never been more connected, but are we all as connected as you'd like us to be? Okay. So, from cash to card and now mobile, 50% of Britons now carry less than £5 in cash. Let's put that to the test, if you dare. Hands up who's carrying more than £5 in cash. And I think we're in a safe environment. Oh yeah. Okay. So probably a little less than 50% there. 74% of shoppers are mobile payments users. And in 2017, 27 billion was expected to be spent via mobile devices. And by 2020, 64% of e-commerce payments will be made on mobile devices. And continuing on a mobile theme, in 2019 it's predicted that 80% of adults around the world will own a smartphone and tablet. 33 billion of retail sales will be made directly via mobile, and 53 billion in 2024. Mobile devices will be used to pay for almost £1 in every 7 spent in British shops. And by 2030, 1.2 billion a week will be spent using mobile devices. So the conclusion on this particular slide is you need to be mobile ready. Mobile is here to stay, and if it's not in your development stack yet, then it really should be soon. Okay. So there's lots of innovation happening in payments right now, but I'm just going to concentrate on 4 areas. The first being invisible payments. And I guess you've all heard of the Amazon Go checkout free store. So essentially this is where a shopper will enter the store, do their shopping. They have to be scanned in first of all, but there are devices around the store that will allow them to do their shopping and then just walk out of the store. No checkout, no online checkout, really quite cool. But I think for the short term, that's probably a little bit beyond us, and there may be some simpler ways of getting there in not the too distant future. So, omnichannel payments. There's a real buzz around the world omnichannel, and I've seen it fly around this conference today. But what does it actually mean? And what are the benefits to the retailer, but the shopper as well? So a true omnichannel is a payment solution that connects multiple sales channels. And by connects, there is a common denominator between these sales channels, and it's normally a token, a data token, so you can actually map the complete customer journey. But what that means is the shopper's journey is completely visible to the retailer, and things like repeat payments are very simple, and you've got the data there already. And click and collect becomes completely seamless because you can check that you're actually dealing with the correct shopper in store. And the omnichannel will actually encourage repeat payments. But for the retailer, it's giving them the opportunity to fully understand their customer base and really reward their loyalty. And the stats prove it. So retailers using an omnichannel, they report a 34% increase in repeat business. Okay, so new forms of identity. So as you've heard the stats around mobile, it's probably no big surprise that biometrics is day-to-day business for us now. And we've seen that with the likes of Apple Pay and Android Pay just becoming the norm. And then we have facial recognition. So the iPhone 10, those of us lucky to have one, actually uses facial recognition already. And who's to say, I think that's potentially going to be your next ID for payments. How far it will go, I don't know, but that could replace chip and PIN. We could be just looking at the cashier and we've paid for our goods. It's a scary thought. And then there's digital assistants. So, they're everywhere at the moment. And the Google version actually requires voice recognition to operate. So already that's taking your voice as ID. And I think the next stage is going to be to align that to your payments. So when I'm ordering my shopping via Google, hey Google, can I have my standard monthly shop and pay with my Barclaycard? I'm actually using my voice to show my identity. And finally, proliferation of data. And there's one thing that all of these payment types have got in common, whether they're here today or they're payment types of the future, and that's data. And I think payment providers like Barclaycard are really seeing the importance of that data and how important it is to our customers. And dare I say it, almost as important as taking the payment itself. So by us providing this data to our clients, it allows them to understand, again, their shoppers' behaviour, and it allows them to predict, I guess, what's next in the market, and also pick up new customers, which ultimately is what we all want. So I'm going to quickly jump back to invisible payments. And we have a team at Barclaycard called the Futures Payments team, and that's really where our innovation lies. You may see some of these in the press, but first of all, we'll talk about grab and go. So very similar to the Amazon concept, but a simplified version that it could be, I guess, used by the masses. So this is an app-based solution, and what you would do is sign up to the Grab and Go app, and then your payment details will be embedded into the app. So you'll put them in, and that's tokenized for future use. So what they've done is within the Barclays canteens across the world, you have the option to be able to pick up your lunch, scan the barcodes, and then you walk out. There's no cashier, there's no online checkout, you just walk out. And what's happening behind the scenes is that payment is going through, and it is an invisible payment. And speaking from experience, when you've got those really busy days, and we have massive canteens that are really busy, it's just so great to be able to pick up your lunch and go and not have to worry about it. And then building on Grab and Go, we have Dine and Dash. So that one is basically it's being trialled this week. So it's being trialled in Prezos. And again, this is an app-based concept. So if you want to actually go out to dinner, so you'd actually download the app first of all, have your dinner as usual, but the difference with this one, at the point of where you are sat there at the table, there's a totem on the table, and you tap your app against the totem. And what it will do is show the serving staff that you will be paying with Dine and Dash. So yeah, the order goes through as standard, you eat your dinner, and at the point when you're ready to leave, you just go, you walk out. And cleverly the app will know that you've walked out because it's got your location in there, and then the payment will actually be fired through at that point, all behind the scenes. And once that's happened, the totem will change colour, so no one will be running down the street after you. It's all just done. So it's just another great example of a hidden payment. But is that a gimmick? Well, no. When we did our research on this, 38% of diners thought that they would actually prefer an invisible payment just to leave after the meal. And on the other side, 67% of restaurant owners really like the idea of having an invisible payment solution because it just helps them with customer service and customer satisfaction. So I think you'll agree that knotting all of this together to optimise your payments journey could be a complex thing. And ultimately, this is down to your payment gateway supplier. And much that I've spoken about today will either be with your payment gateway supplier now or certainly on their roadmap. But what makes a good payment gateway? So, omnichannel services, I've already mentioned it, but to remind you, you will need a gateway that's actually going to join all of those channels together, so you get that overarching one customer view. Best-in-class security. So this is around getting the right transactions through and having the tools to maximise the good transactions and, of course, getting rid of the bad. And lastly, simple checkout. So payment gateways should be able to give you the choice of how your customer wants to check out and the integration options that will be available to you. So whether that's a hosted page or an iframe or mobile SDK or face-to-face omnichannel, then, like I say, they should be there for you. And just a few more stats on omnichannel. I mean, this is really from a customer's perspective. Shopping here, there and everywhere. Never has there been a time where consumers have had so much choice on where and how to shop. So it's really important that those channels join. And from consumers, omnichannel shoppers spend 4% more in store and a massive 10% more online. And they're 23% more likely to recommend you as a brand. So we've briefly touched on payment security, which is absolutely vital to your success. And it's a subject in itself, so I can't talk about it in entirety today, but just to really give you some stats around how important it is. So securing payments is becoming increasingly costly, and the average cost of a credit card breach is $7 million. And according to the PCI SSC, the penalties for data breaches will reach a staggering £122 billion by the end of 2018. So new regulation will bring more change, and the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR as you may have heard of it, rules are actually coming into place now. And you may have noticed this yourselves, so some of your favourite retailers may be asking you questions about the data they hold on you. You're probably considering it yourselves, but we need to get GDPR ready because that's actually happening in May. And PSD2, I sort of mentioned it, but we're looking at two-factor authentication again. There's a lot more to PSD2, but specifically on payments, that is really the most important thing to consider. So 18% of shoppers abandon purchases because of security reasons. So it's still so important to have the right feel, the right look about your website or your mobile app. And perhaps the scariest stat of all, 18% of businesses don't even know how many cyber attacks they had in the last year. And only 37% of organisations have a cyber incident response plan. And £29.1 billion was the cost of cybercrime on UK businesses in 2016. So, in reality, payment security is absolutely vital to your success. And like I say, I can't really go through the whole of payment security today, but I'm just going to pick out, I guess, one area that is quite easy to achieve, and that's using tokenisation. If you use this already, you'll know that essentially a token is a replacement of the card data. So you're not actually using the card data in your systems, and your payment provider is handling that data on your behalf. So I would absolutely recommend that. It's nothing new, it's been around for many years, but I still see that there's quite a few retailers out there that just don't use it. And I would absolutely advise against holding cardholder detail. If you absolutely have to, then it's going to cost you a lot of money in time and effort to maintain your PCI compliance. Simply using tokenisation, you can actually have a much quicker and easier journey to maintain PCI compliance. Oh, sorry, we'll skip one. Let me just go back. And so finally, I suppose this is something that gets forgotten or just is seen as standard, and that's internationalisation. So one of the things that I find quite interesting, there's so many retailers out there that just are not finding it easy to internationalise. And with payment providers today, they give you all the tools in order to do this. And a really obvious one is multi-currency. So if you are trading overseas, then don't trade in your own currency, trade in the currency where your customer is. It's going to give them more trust in you, and more likely to actually, or they're more likely to complete the sale. And cross-border sales, it's sort of one of the same. But I guess multi-currency is more for the online world. Cross-border, are you actually going to physically enter into a new country and have physical stores? Whichever way, make sure your payment provider is set up to allow you to do that. And for both of these, I think the fear is that you're going to have a load of different bank accounts and have a load of different random currencies sat there that you need to exchange at some point. Well, no. Your payment provider can actually do that for you, so you can have everything going back into your GBP account, which makes it quite simple. And then back to alternative payments. So we started with this, and I still say, just adding alternative payments to your website is not going to increase your sales. You need to think about it, and you need to understand if that is actually going to help you with your conversions. So, for example, if you're going into the Netherlands, then you would want to put Ideal in as a payment type, because that is 40% of the detail of the actual payment sector there. Okay, so that's it from me. How long have we got? Oh, sorry.
Well, thanks very much, Liz. It's been a great overview of what Barclaycard is doing in this space to work with retailers to enable a lot more transactions in this digital age. I'd like to open up quickly just for one very quick question, and then we'll have to dash. Does anybody have one very quick question? If not, we'll wrap it up. Okay, the chap here with his hand up. Well done. Sorry, you could just wait for the mic and tell us who you are and where you're from. Thanks.
Hiya, my name's Ed. I'm from O2. You were talking about grab and go. So with the sandwiches in the shop, how do you stop customers just walking out?
Trust, and that is the downfall. So I think you probably only consider it if you know, with high value goods, it's probably a complete no. But certainly for low value goods, and in that canteen scenario, yes, there could be the odd sandwich that slips through the net, but overall the actual sales that go through are increased, so you've got to look at both sides.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great example. So thanks very much for joining us in your presentation today. Thank you very much.